Well, I wanted to tell them, but I thought that the government would punish me.
A mother empties her entire life savings, converts it to gold bars, and hands it over to strangers she believes are government agents. All while her daughter's phone number sits in the bank's system, marked as the person to call if something goes wrong. And by the time that call finally comes, every single dollar is already gone. This is the story of Ruth, an elderly woman who didn't fall for a scam because she was foolish, but because she was trying to protect the people she loved most, and the people on the other end of that phone line knew exactly how to use that love against her. If you've ever worried about an elderly parent or grandparent getting one of these calls, subscribe right now because this channel exists to expose exactly how these schemes work and to make sure you never get a phone call like the one Ruth's daughter Leslie received. Ruth said something in an interview that should haunt everyone who hears it. "I wanted to tell them, but I thought the government would punish me and I didn't want them to get into trouble, anybody that I told." She wasn't hiding a shameful secret. She was protecting her children, and the scammers who stole everything from her knew that a mother's protective instinct would be the most powerful weapon they could use.
They just mentioned large transactions and wire transfers, and did I know what was taking place?
And you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Here's the truth about elder fraud that most people don't want to face. The most dangerous scams don't come from obvious criminals who seem threatening or suspicious. They come from people who sound official, who create urgency, who isolate their victims from the one thing that could save them, which is family. And they specifically target seniors because they know that generation trusts phone calls, trusts authority figures, and will do anything to keep their loved ones safe from harm. Ruth's last name was never released publicly because her daughter Leslie asked reporters to protect her mother's privacy. But what we do know paints a picture of someone who did everything right for decades. She worked, she saved, she built something slowly and carefully, the way people do when they're not wealthy. When every dollar represents hours of labor and sacrifice. And eventually, she had a life savings and an investment account with Charles Schwab, and a daughter who loved her enough to be listed as a trusted contact on that account, which is supposed to mean something. The scam began the way thousands of them begin every single day across America. Someone contacted Ruth.
The gold, is it in your apartment? Is it in a safety deposit box? Where is the gold? And she wouldn't tell us.
Possibly posing as a government official or a tech support expert, and told her that her computer had been hacked, that her accounts were compromised, that her money wasn't safe where it was, but there was a solution, a way to protect everything she'd spent a lifetime building. They told her to convert her savings into physical gold bars, because gold, they explained, was a real investment that the government recognized as protected, as safe from the digital threats that had supposedly compromised her accounts. And to Ruth, sitting alone with her computer, and a voice on the phone speaking with authority about government procedures, it felt like the truth. It felt like someone was finally helping her navigate a digital world that had become threatening and confusing. But then came the instruction that sealed everything, the 4 words that made this scam almost impossible to stop. Don't tell your family. They told her that if she told anyone, especially her daughter, the government would punish her, that the people she loved could get into legal trouble, and Ruth, who had spent her entire life protecting her children the way mothers do, made the decision to stay quiet, to handle this herself, to shield Leslie from whatever consequences these official-sounding people on the phone were warning her about. This is what makes these scams so devastatingly effective. They don't just steal money, they weaponize love. They take the most protective instincts a person has and turn them into a wall of silence that keeps families from intervening until it's far too late. Ruth began making transactions at Charles Schwab. Withdrawals, wire transfers, movements of money that individually might have seemed routine, but collectively represented the systematic emptying of her life savings. She bought physical gold bars, and at some point, she handed that gold over to people she believed were government couriers keeping her assets safe. And each step felt logical because the people on the phone had an answer for every question, a reason for every action, and none of it felt like one catastrophic decision because it wasn't. It was a series of small steps, each one following naturally from the last, each one moving her closer to financial devastation while she believed she was moving toward safety. Charles Schwab did eventually reach out to Leslie, and this is where the story becomes almost unbearable. Leslie got a voicemail she will never forget. "Hello, I'm calling with Charles Schwab, with the Financial Crimes Investigations Team." And they mentioned large transactions and wire transfers and asked if she knew what was taking place. But when Leslie heard that message, she had no idea what was happening to her mother's money. No idea that Ruth had been living under the weight of this secret for weeks, believing that her silence was the only thing standing between her daughter and government punishment. Leslie confronted her mother with the question that should have unlocked everything. "Where is the gold, Mom? Is it in your apartment? Is it in a safety deposit box? Where is the gold?" And Ruth wouldn't tell her. Maybe because she still believed the people on the phone. Maybe because she was scared. Or maybe because after being told for weeks that talking to your family puts them in danger, that protective instinct doesn't just switch off the moment your daughter asks. The money, all of it, Ruth's life savings, was gone. Charles Schwab declined to be interviewed for the original news report, but their position through a spokesperson was essentially this. When a client calls and says they want to move their own money, it's not the bank's place to stop them. And if they blocked every unusual transaction, and it turned out to be legitimate, they could face liability. So they want government legislation that explicitly authorizes them to intervene, a legal green light to say no. That's not an unreasonable position in isolation, but Ruth's account had Leslie's name and phone number specifically designated as a trusted contact for exactly this kind of situation. And that call from the Financial Crimes Investigations Team came after the wire transfers, after the gold purchases, after the damage was done. These aren't isolated criminals working alone. CBS News sent a correspondent into an actual scam operation in Ghana and found organized rooms full of people running scripts, calling Americans all day, extracting hundreds of millions of dollars through techniques they've refined over years of practice. The FBI reports that Americans lost over $3.4 billion to elder fraud in a single recent year. And tech support scams like the one that targeted Ruth are among the fastest growing categories because they've figured out exactly which fears to exploit, exactly which words to use, and the gold angle specifically, having victims buy physical gold and hand it to couriers, is exploding because it bypasses every digital safeguard a bank might have in place. Here are the red flags everyone needs to recognize. Any caller who claims your computer is hacked and your money needs to move immediately is lying to you. Any official who tells you not to tell your family is a scammer without exception. Any request to convert savings to gold bars, gift cards, cryptocurrency, or wire transfers to unfamiliar accounts is fraud. Any sense of urgency designed to prevent you from hanging up and calling a family member first is manufactured to stop you from getting help. Some financial institutions are getting this right. There's a credit union in Iowa where tellers are trained to flag sudden changes in withdrawal patterns. Pull up the trusted contact on file and call the family before the money leaves, not after. And they work directly with local police because they've decided that stopping a robbery matters more than avoiding an awkward conversation. As of the time the original report aired, Ruth's money had not been recovered. The scammers operating overseas face no immediate legal consequences, and Charles Schwab's investigation was ongoing with no public resolution. If this story made you want to call your parents today, do it right now. Tell them what this scam looks like. Tell them that no legitimate government agency will ever call and demand secrecy from family. Tell them that you want to know immediately if anyone contacts them about their computer or their money. And subscribe to this channel because next week, there's another story that families need to hear. Ruth didn't make a dumb mistake. She made a human one, the kind any loving parent might make when someone convincing tells them their children are at risk. The people on the other end of that phone knew exactly what they were doing. Her name was in the system, the number was there, and the call came too late.